Welcome to Season 3 of Time and Materials, a construction-only podcast that's powered by livecost.com, where we sit down with interesting people doing interesting things in construction. These construction experts kindly give us their time so that you can walk away with greater insights to make better day-to-day decisions in your construction career. Hello, you're very welcome to another episode of the Time and Materials podcast. This week, I'm joined by Terry Gorry, who has been recognised as a bit of an online solicitor superstar. This episode is hugely valuable because we delve into Terry's background in property development. He's gone on since to transition from property into the legal profession, providing advice for a lot of companies around the country and those companies internationally trying to break into Ireland for the likes of property deals. He's managed to do that by building an online content machine with a certain video just recently getting over 400k views. And this has been a hugely valuable asset to Terry and how he's using that as a biz dev opportunity. We delve into that. We also jump into some, what I feel is hugely valuable as well, around unfair dismissal cases. And we delve into a particular case around where there was a builder on site and he, punched a guy in the nose and he ends up getting dismissed for that, which sounds pretty fair, but wins the case, right, against unfair dismissal. So we need to understand the processes around actual dismissal of an employee. So we delve in and Terry's got a huge amount of knowledge in that particular area. And again, then we jump into some top tips. Should you be considering buying, renovating and selling as your first step into property development? So sit back, enjoy, and I hope you get some value from my chat with Terry Gorry. Terry, you're very welcome to the Time Materials podcast. Great to have you on board. Cheers.
Thank you very much. No problem at all.
Terry, we always kick off these things with just trying to give a bit of context to who we're speaking to and let people understand, I suppose, a little bit about your background. Can you tell us just a little bit about, I suppose, your background and bring me right back, why legal?
Well, I eventually got into legal through a very circuitous sort of a route. I was self-employed in retailing and kind of property development and flipping properties and so on from the age of 23 till about the age of 43 or thereabouts when the Celtic Tiger crash came to an end. So for years, I did quite well in retailing and used to basically flip properties, flip retail, work hard at it, flip them, sell them on, reinvest, etc. And then eventually, in the time of the Celtic Tiger situation, I bought a site down in Longford and obviously that whole thing ended badly. So I was kind of wiped out, quite frankly, and had to do something else with my time and see what I was going to do. And I'd lost all my capital and everything. So I actually went back to college when I was in my early 40s to begin studying law again for the first time after 20 years, whatever. And that's how I ended up in the legal game. So I qualified then in 2011, set up my own practice. And I'm here now since, obviously after 11, 12 years, whatever it is. So I've had a roller coaster ride and a lot of it has been actually property related, investment related, and eventually the construction thing, which obviously wiped out a lot of people, including me.
And would they be then your core customer, primary customer base then would still be property developers, construction people?
No, it wouldn't be at all. I mean, the ordinary person buying or selling a property. I do a lot of employment law. I do a lot of small business stuff. I do wills and probate. I do everything except crime. Crime doesn't pay, as you know. But no, I don't do criminal law. I don't do road traffic. I do everything else. But I mean, the bottom line, the bread and butter stuff would be conveyancing, would be property, would be employment law, that sort of stuff,
You've gone, I suppose, since opening up your own business, and you've put a lot of time and effort into, I suppose, growing an online presence in that business. I suppose, how do you think, first of all, before you dig into your own personal success there, like how do you think online, the internet, social media, I suppose, as a whole has changed the legal profession?
Well, the legal profession has been sort of not so much resistant, but has been pretty slow, in my view, to actually adopting or adapting to the change that and the opportunities indeed in social media and so on. I've embraced them, but I've come to the legal profession late and with a different sort of mindset and different perspective perhaps than somebody who had been born and reared in the legal game and who only understood legal and who only understood that you get clients by referrals, etc. I didn't have time, quite frankly, when I was 42 or 43 after losing everything, starting out. I didn't have time for that crap. So I basically had to fish where the fish were, and the fish were on social media. So that's how I kind of got into it. And obviously, you put your best foot forward and you iterate and change as you go along. You make it a little bit better every day. So, my YouTube channel, I have 26,000 subscribers on it now. But I mean, I uploaded my first video in 2009,
Yeah. So from day one, you're like that was a part of the strategy. You were going to
Oh,
go
from day
after
one, absolutely. Yeah, I started blogging actually. I have a website there, businessandlegal.ie, and the first blog post on that was 2009, and that's still my website for my practice here. But I've developed that then into the video and so on. And as I said, the first video I uploaded was around about Paddy's Day, I think 2009. So that's a long time to be at it. So, like, if you are at it and you're committed and you're interested, you're going to make it a little bit better every time, and that's. But a lot of legal people haven't done that, haven't bothered to do that, and look, that's their choice. But I think coming to the legal industry with a different perspective, with the perspective of perhaps property development, construction, retailing for years, that gives you kind of a different mindset, and you are obviously very focused on generating customers or clients or whatever.
And a part of that strategy, then obviously you just jump into that. You see an angle there, which makes a ton of sense. Then, like, is there a consistency to that? Did you say, like, I'm going to put a blog out every month or a blog out every week?
Yeah, consistency is huge. Yeah. And the consistency is massive. And originally I was putting up one YouTube video every week. Then it went to 2 Wednesday and Saturday. And now I'm practically doing them daily. Now I don't have to, and there's no great pressure on me to do it, but I can do them very, very quickly, very handily. And a lot of it, the stuff I'm doing obviously is talking head stuff. So it's relatively straightforward. So all I'm doing is basically keeping abreast of developments, changes, unfair dismissal cases, people getting in difficulty with loans and so on, high court cases, and doing a short video on that. I mean, I can do it in 10 minutes, edit it in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's going to take me less than half an hour. So it's no huge commitment from my perspective. So, that's what I do. And obviously you try to keep abreast of changes.
Yeah, because we've started to see it now. Like this, like I came across a guy recently on Instagram. His name escapes me now. It was going back a couple of weeks ago, but I think he was calling himself the Online Bricky or something like that. But the mass following that this guy had, and all he was doing was he had an apprentice with him who was literally documenting stuff that he was doing on a day-to-day basis, and the interest in that was mind blowing, right? So you can do it. I mean, I suppose what a lot of people would say is, I don't understand maybe if people are interested in that, but there is a general interest in a lot of stuff you're doing. So, like, for example, if you're running a small, even back to your original point, if you're flipping houses, a lot of people would be interested in the house what it looked like at the start, how it's progressing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Was there money in it? I mean, one question I'd have, like, what if you're doing even talking head stuff, like, do you need editors? Do you need to bring in a marketing agency? Do you need to, like, what's involved in actually deciding that I have an interesting piece of content, I want to get it out there, I want to get my personal brand or company brand out there? What's involved in actually saying, right, I think I've got something? Consistency, you're saying, is one, but like from an editing and posting point of view, what's involved in that?
Well, I don't have an editor. I do everything myself. So, I mean, I started my YouTube channel with this, and then I, graduated or moved on to this. But I mean, bottom line is, I'll scan the newspapers, I'll scan the Twitter, for example. And if there's a story there, for example, last week I had a video actually on TikTok go absolutely viral. It was about the Kyle Hayes, the Limerick hurler, and his court case below in Limerick. And yesterday, after 24 hours, I had 413,000 viewers of that particular video. But I mean, making that video took me like 10 minutes. As I say, I banged out, I edited then myself, uploaded to my YouTube channel. YouTube is free. Anybody can have one. And that's really it. So I don't have any great cost in that regard, and as I'm fairly flexible and fairly nimble. So I'll use my mobile phone, I'll use a camera. I have a good quality camera there now, and audio is important. But other than that, like, the talking head stuff certainly is very straightforward.
And is there a way for you then to,
I suppose, accredit new business, or is there a way of you saying I can attribute that video or that piece of content to a new customer? Or, well, I suppose what some questions might come across when people are interested in this is like, how do I know that it's working, right? How do I know that?
I get email inquiries from all over America and Europe about buying property in Ireland. So if you want to buy property in Ireland, anybody in Germany or France or the UK will do a simple Google search. Google own YouTube. So I'm going to feature either on Google search or on YouTube, or on both. People will contact me then and they'll say, I just saw your YouTube channel. It's great. Can you act for me in relation to I'm buying this property in the west of Ireland? It's in Leitrim. It's going to cost 100 grand. I want to get the vacant property or derelict property grant, blah, blah, blah. I see you have a video on that. And that's how I know. I can directly attribute purchases, conveyances. I mean, I have guys from America there buying properties in Ireland for cash, quite frankly, very, very wealthy individuals who come across me simply on YouTube because that's where they look. I mean, people do search online and that's it, So if you're from outside Ireland, if you're from Germany or the UK or United States, you're going to do a Google search and you're going to try and find some guy who actually knows what he's doing. And, that's the whole idea of what I do and making the videos. Basically, I'm putting out useful information. I'm not saying buy my shit or pick me. I'm simply putting out useful information, and people can draw their own conclusion, then say, geez, that fella seems to know what he's talking about,
Yeah, and again, I can echo that, because how I suppose we ended up chatting today is we were interested in a piece on unfair dismissal. We do our own research to say who's out there that can speak to us about that, and we find your stuff, and there's more evidence that getting yourself out there is right. I mean, I suppose going back to that point, one of the things that we were interested to speak to you about was that unfair dismissal piece, and there was a piece of content you put out a couple of years ago. It's going back to a case a couple of years ago where a builder breaks a colleague's nose in an argument on site, gets dismissed, and actually goes and wins the case. Do you remember the case
I do, absolutely. Yeah. It was Mark Gilligan was the guy. He made a comment to an apprentice of a personal nature. The apprentice pushed Gilligan to the ground. Gilligan then struck him and broke his nose, and the boss man fired Gilligan, and Gilligan brought a claim to the WRC. And basically, he won his case. But when I say he won his case, he won 4 weeks' wages, which was reduced to 966 euros on the basis that he was 66% responsible for his own dismissal. Now, obviously, he got a new job fairly quickly, and that's why he was only awarded 4 weeks' wages in the first instance. And then it was reduced back down to 966 euros. That's a serious pain in the arse, quite frankly, for the employer, because the employer has to go along to the WRC hearing, defend himself, perhaps get legal representation, doesn't know how it's going to go, and it's going to cost them time and it's going to cost them money. But that could have been avoided if the employer had engaged in some sort of disciplinary procedure. And the adjudication officer in that case noted that the disciplinary procedures were simply not followed. In other words, if you simply get rid of somebody on the basis of what appears to be compelling evidence, you're still going to get caught with your trousers down if you don't put to the alleged wrongdoer the allegation of what he did wrong and give him a chance to explain himself. Do you know what I mean?
What does that? I mean, if you're mapping out then what the employer should have done in that case, I mean,
he probably should have suspended your man on pay first and said, look, I'm going to investigate this. And then he should have gone to him and said, look, I'm after talking to the apprentice there. He's making the allegation that you broke his bloody nose, and in fact, I saw you breaking his nose. What do you have to say to that? And if your man says, the apprentice said something about my mother or wound me up or whatever, and I retaliated, I'm sorry, that's one thing. And the boss man might say, okay, there's some mitigation there, there's some mitigating circumstances, we'll give you a final written warning, don't do it again. Or the boss man can do what he did, you're fired, pack up your trowel and go, then there's no procedure. Do you know what I mean? So, and we all know of court cases and so on where what on the surface appears to be an appalling set of circumstances and a completely one-way story. When somebody goes into evidence, then you might say, Jesus, that's a completely different. Now I can see how that arose or whatever. So there's always two sides to every story. And, you're supposed to go through the motions, quite frankly. And a lot of employers lose unfair dismissal cases because they simply don't go through any procedure. And everybody has a constitutional right to fair procedures. It's in the Constitution.
So trying to bring this back to sort of real life example. So if you have a guy, Terry, let's say, and he's not on an actual contract. You've never given him a contract, let's say, but I mean, he's been with you over 12 months. He's entitled to pretty much the same rights as if he had a contract in the place.
Well, I mean,
right?
the first argument he's going to make if he goes to a solicitor is, I'm there for over 12 months, I'm rocking up, I'm doing the work, and he's paying me. And he's paying me an hourly rate. Of course, I'm a bloody employee. I'm entitled to employment rights. I'm entitled to the rights that any employee is entitled to, blah, blah, blah. And the very first case he has there is one against his employer for his failure to give him a written statement of terms and conditions of employment, and then whatever else comes after that. And that can be a very easy case to win because a lot of lads don't give written statements, but they must do it. And the maximum award for that is 4 weeks' wages. The average is 2. But when they come to me, if there's other things going on, other claims, you'll always throw that in because it's an easy win. You know what I mean? It's a straightforward net situation. The guy either gave a written contract or he didn't. If he didn't, like, I win. You know what I mean? It's as simple as that.
Yeah. So if that guy is with you, let's say the employer in that case knows that he's obviously entitled to the employment rights, and he maybe just starts he was a good performer at one stage. Now he's starting to down tools a little bit. Maybe he just isn't performing. What does the employer have to do then to do things correctly to make sure we can unwind that person out of the company without any?
He has to go through some sort of a performance improvement process. In other words, he needs to tell the employee, look, what's going on? Your performance has slipped. I'm not happy with you because of X, Y, and Z. You're simply not doing as good a quality work as you used to, and here's the evidence of that. I'm going to give you a period of time during which you must improve. Is there anything bothering you outside the workplace? Is there any particular reason why your work has now become slipshod? And bottom line is, you put him on a procedure or a process, you give him the chance to improve. And if he doesn't improve or couldn't give a crap, or it comes into work late, etc., well, then, the employer is entitled to terminate on the grounds of performance. That's it. You've given him a fair chance. You've given him a fair warning. You've given him what he needs to meet the standard, and he's failed. And that's fine. But you do need to go through that procedure, because if you don't go through the procedure, the argument is it's an unfair dismissal. And all dismissals are essentially deemed to be unfair dismissals unless there's substantial grounds for termination, So you do need substantial grounds as an employer.
Okay, so if you're giving them a verbal warning, then you want to document that, I suppose, make sure that's documented.
You want to keep record of, some sort of basic records of any warnings issued, etc., etc. And you are supposed to do it in a fair sort of a process. And a warning can only, if it's a verbal, for example, it would probably be only on the record for 6 months or whatever. It wouldn't be hanging over a fella for the rest of his life or whatever. So again, a basic disciplinary procedure should be in the workplace. And, there's plenty of people out there who can give you a disciplinary procedure or a staff handbook or whatever. And there's a statutory instrument, 146 of 2000, that covers it anyway. So even if you only Googled 146 of 2000, you can actually find a bloody procedure online there that's in law that should be followed broadly,
Okay, and if I decide that I'm going to put this guy on a PIP, the performance improvement process,
yeah,
is there a timeline on that there? Can I decide?
Yeah, there would be.
I mean, that for a week, or is it
you'd want to be giving them 3 months, even up to 6 months. I mean, if you put a fella on a PIP for, say, a month and go rid of him, you could lose an unfair dismissal case simply because it could be argued that you didn't give him enough time to improve or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, listen, and you know what? It happens in construction. It's happened to me myself, where you get a tip on the shoulder where the employer says, "Listen, lads, things haven't gone to plan here. We didn't get paid by the main contractor. We're going to have to let pretty much everyone go." I presume there's grounds for, in that case, I suppose the employer has economic reasons, like there's no money to pay you.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that's a different process. That's a redundancy situation. Obviously, if you have 2 years continuous service, you're entitled to redundancy payment. However, if you don't have 2 years continuous service, if you only have 12 months or 18 months, or unfortunately, the employer can get rid of you on the grounds of redundancy, and redundancy is a defence to an unfair dismissal claim, but it must be a genuine redundancy.
And if the case was redundancy, let's say I'm a building contractor, I've got a gang of carpenters employed for me. Is there a case where I've decided like I want to let this group of carpenters go and hold on to that? Do the employers have any rights there to say, why is it me being picked for that redundancy and not this guy because we're in the same place?
Yeah, again, the process must be reasonable. It must be fair. It can't be sort of an unfair dismissal dressed up as a redundancy, and you can't sort of apply criteria unfairly to lads. In other words, you should have some sort of a matrix, and this is how you're going to mark or give lads credit, etc. And on this basis, then you're going to decide who's going to be made redundant or not. So that's a question of selection, unfairly selected. If you're unfairly selected for redundancy, for example, you might be the only Polish lad in a crew of, say, 6. Then you might be saying to yourself, Jesus, I was only let go because I'm from Poland. I'm going to bring a claim now for discrimination or something. So the employer needs to be able to objectively justify why they picked one individual if they had to pick one individual out of a number,
Yeah. You mentioned there as well, like let's say the case being that maybe I just didn't have the proper contract in place, and in that case, the employer's the employee is probably gonna have a fair chance of win the case against me. If you're looking at, let's say, I take my chances and I'll go and I'll take a chance of seeing this guy in the WRC. Like, what's the rough cost of a day in WRC for?
Well, look, if you get legal representation for WRC, you could be looking at something like $3,000 plus VAT. You could be looking at that. Now, sometimes these bloody cases go kind of pear-shaped insofar as they can go on over not 1, but maybe 2 or 3 days, depending on the number of witnesses. And time is money, If I have to leave the office like on 3 occasions and spend a day in Dublin rather than be here in the office making a few bob, then that may well be reflected in the bill later on, So sometimes they can be very straightforward cases and be dealt with within a couple of hours, but sometimes you could have a case there where you have 3, 4, 5 witnesses, and you know what I mean, it can drag on, and then you could be back for day 2 or day 3. So you'd want to be allowing for probably something like $3,000 plus VAT, I would imagine, but look, it depends on the solicitor, I suppose.
Yeah. And like, just going back to your property flipping example, is construction any different, right, to how other industries look? I mean, there's a massive fluctuation in staff numbers in between projects, for example. So there's a high level of movement between the staff number from job to job, meaning people are coming in, people are coming out. Is there any difference between construction and any other?
No, the law is the law, and the law doesn't really care whether you're a block layer or, a tiler or a roofer, as opposed to, say, support staff in a retail environment or somebody working in office. Everybody has employment rights, and they're the rights that will be upheld, etc., etc. And to make matters worse, quite frankly, for the construction sector, you have the employment regulation order, whatever you call it, where it sets out certain obligations on people in particular industries. One of them is for the building industry, which sets out various obligations to do with pensions and all that crack. So if anything, the construction industry is an even more difficult situation for employers,
Yeah. Just on that topic as well, because we actually, a lot of our own customers and a lot of our own actually listeners to this as well, once that we get the pleasure to speak to, are in that space, actually, that buying, renovating, selling. It's a, especially with some of the grants that are available in Ireland at the moment for derelicts and all that type of stuff. So it's a, I would say, a hot space at the moment. From your experience there, I suppose, buying, renovating, selling, what are the top tips you would have for people maybe starting their property development journey in that particular flipping strategy?
If they're going to do property development or flipping, I mean, firstly, I think they need 2 things. One is finance, and 2 is imagination. And I think a lot of people don't have sufficient imagination to see where opportunities genuinely are and are not. So, they need to be aware of the relaxation of various planning obligations, for example, in relation to regeneration of derelict buildings in towns and so on, and living over shops and that sort of crack. That's what I'd actually be doing if I was back property developing again. I'd be looking at the likes of retail units and old pubs and so on fairly good locations, and actually probably transferring them or transforming them into residential, etc., etc. But there is incentives for that, and there is relaxations on the planning obligations as well. So the cost there of getting an architect in and so on, and getting certificates of compliance, they could be relaxed for the likes of a development on a town or a village that would have seen better days, maybe from, like, we all know towns and villages where, like, one time we'll say 15 or 20 pubs in the town, and now there's only 3 or 4 and only a need for 3 or 4. Like, there's 12 other buildings there perhaps in the village or in the town, which are probably fairly well located. You know what I mean?
Any temptations to go back in?
Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes you'd have a look and you'd see, and I saw a lad here a couple of years ago doing a good thing. He bought a retail unit not a million miles away from here, and he discovered you could actually transform it to residential without planning permission, and that's what he did. And he has a very nice apartment for himself now, and the retail unit was commercial in a very good location, and never had traded. So it was exempt from the obligation to get planning. He did a lot of the work himself, and he has a bloody nice, well located residential unit now with no concerns about planning obligations or planning permission.
Opportunities are out there. There's absolutely no
They are,
question.
yeah. You need to be looking around though, and you need to be, as I say, that's why you need imagination and money, I think, for property development. If you're, and that's key.
Terry, you've obviously got a wealth of knowledge in all this space. If anyone listening wants to reach out to you, pick your brain on any of that, or just generally reach out for legal advice, where's the best place to find you?
Just at the website, businessandlegal.ie, Ciaran, businessandlegal.ie, or else just Google my name and you'll find any number of, I have a few websites, and but that website, Terry Gorry and Company Solicitors, is probably the best one. That's businessandlegal.ie. But if anyone Googles my name, they'll find the contact details,
Brilliant. We'll pop up the links as well in the show notes as well. Terry, listen, thanks for
Good
your
stuff,
time.
Ciaran.
Really appreciate you coming on. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Time and Materials is brought to you by LiveCost, the construction software fully designed to manage your construction financial forecasts. Visit livecost.com to take a product tour, or reach out to our team of construction cost experts to transform your project profits. Any links mentioned during this episode, including speaker profiles or any other resources, are available on the podcast show notes. Your feedback is also welcome. We would really appreciate if you could take a moment to leave us a review, or email your comments, guest suggestions to hello@timeandmaterials.com. Finally, if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for listening. Until next time, I'm your host, Ciaran Brennan.